So after the auto configuration and pre-processing is complete, we are now left with the T-series that we can threshold. To do that, we're going to find the T-series that we processed. We're going to click threshold, and then we wait for the RoA manager to open with the threshold windows. So what we've done so far is we have determined we let the computer decide the appropriate pre-processing necessary, which means temporal and spatial smoothing that pushes the signal to noise ratio up to 9. So what you're looking at in this window here right now is effectively the data after it has been processed in this fashion. What we need to do next is we need to determine the threshold above which the signal is perceived to be real signal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the RoA overlay, which means region of activity overlay, and the red that you're seeing here is actually areas where signal is high. The threshold slider here determines the sensitivity that we put for, or it basically determines the baseline over which we say that something is signal or not. So depending on where you want to put this depends on your data and what you are looking for. Right now we're going to put it here at 5, and it seems to me then that it reaches a good level of detection. Then I'm going to say that the minimum area of the signal is going to be, I'm going to put this to 2 pixels so that it has a little bit of less sensitivity to these tiny or smallest events, which could be artifacts. We're also going to make, we also have a tool here called the ignore regions. We're going to say that because of the motion correction, the edges of the picture are sometimes unreliable. So we're going to say that we want some of the outer part of the image not to be included in this processing. You can also draw here specific areas if you have areas that are prone to artifacting in your image, and say that, well, we're not interested in signal from these areas. I'm also going to say that the minimum duration in frames that I want one of these events to be will be 2. So we're effectively now making a few filtering criteria for what we've done. So now I'm going to save this configuration. You now have 2 options. You can actually directly process this T-series by clicking this button, and then you will get the regions of activity, the final results directly now and here in the RoA manager. But probably the recommended approach is to do what we call the template processing. So what we've done now is that we've established the baseline and say that something above that baseline is signal, and then we have made some filtering to that to prevent artifacting, and we are also saying that we want to ignore the outer regions. So now I'm going to close the RoA manager. And now we made some probably pretty decent decisions about how to automatically process or detect data or detect signal in our data. So now we're going to say that this is the template that we are going to use for the rest of the processing. So I'm going to choose toggle template. So now you see that the RoA template column has a checkbox, and that means that this one is now to function as a template for processing all the data. So now we are at the final step here where we have set a template and we're now going to process the rest of the data. So we're simply going to do that by using the batch operation process. No, sorry, that was actually wrong. But it's a good thing to show, because process here will process we'll process the series individually based on the selection or based on the configuration, but we have only configured a single data point here. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to do process by template. So what we ended up with now is a series of batch operations that will basically perform all the processing steps for our data based on the configuration for this template that's here marked here. So now we're going to start that, and then the next video we're going to look at the results of this processing once it's completed.